Every club.
Every day.
The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello, welcome back to the Daily Palace podcast, brought to you by the Global Sports Podcast Network. I'm Joe Lodge. I'm the host with the most, if we're talking chemical dehumidifiers and a reluctance to turn on the heating. Avec moi today, a Don Tonnerre. How's it going, Dan?
I'm going all right so far. Yeah, very much in the same vein. I don't want to turn the heating on as much as possible, but it may come down to it at some point.
I think you've got to turn it on now. We've got like full electric heaters, which always makes me slightly more reluctant to turn them on because they cost a lot and are basically useless. But I think any kind of extra heat we can get now is worthwhile. So I will be whacking them on later. But we're not the Daily Heating Solutions podcast, the Daily Palace podcast. So today we are going to talk about some news regarding the ownership situation and Textor's attempts to shift his shares or not, or find an alternative solution that lets him stay in Palace. We're also going to discuss a couple more transfer rumours, and then we'll finish with a very brief quiz. So, to start with the ownership news, you may remember a couple of weeks ago we did a segment on Textor's potential options for selling his Palace shares / raising the cash that he needs to bail Leon out of trouble, essentially. A US-Saudi consortium had previously had a bid rejected for his Palace shares, have now had one accepted in principle, according to The Athletic, which is an offer of £148.4 million for Texas Palace shares. So they've now entered a period of exclusivity to buy them, and are in the phases of football finance stuff I don't fully understand, but proof of funds and all of that kind of good stuff, making sure the deal can actually be done, dotting the I's and crossing the T's. However, there is an alternative offer on the table from SportsBank, who are looking to invest in Textor's Eagle football group rather than Palace. That may allow Textor to keep his shares in Palace and actually give him the funds to push to finally take full control of the club, as he's long wanted to. It's been reported by The Athletic that it's just really a question of which offer can be finalised quicker, again, in terms of the due diligence, proof of funds, all that process, and that Textor would prefer the SportsBank offer, but really is whichever gets over the line first. I think Dan saw a tweet with sort of really confirming SportsBank's approach and interest earlier. But yeah, if you've not been bored to sleep by all that, Dan, which offer would you prefer? The Consortium and Textor gone, or SportsBank and Textor stays?
I'm not really sure, because both of them, it's not a brilliant situation either way. With SportsBank, at least we have some people that are actually, I think, fans of the club. I think they got a backing from actual fans, so that's probably slightly better to better in the sort of the long term, but it does keep Textor around. But on the other hand, the other one gets rid of Textor, but then we have to go through the whole Saudi ownership kind of Saudi money, which is the same thing that Newcastle went through a couple of years ago. And also with that bid, I want to also add that one of the partners in this thing, part of the consortium, is former basketball player / coach Jason Kidd. I want to know how much money is in American sports, because isn't like Tom Brady a part owner of Birmingham as well, or something stupid? There is when did sports stars get enough money to buy their own teams? Because I also seem to remember when Chelsea was up for bids, there was a consortium that had Lewis Hamilton as one of their investors, and it's like, where is all this money coming from? Where do they? So
yeah, I think they get kind of cut in on it, don't they, for maybe slightly PR reasons.
Yeah,
Not
I think it's like PR, but I think
it's not the right
Brady's is
idea.
only like
Palace
like
fans to the
3% or something. But
Palace
yeah,
Mavericks. Yeah.
I was just looking up earlier and went, and this is just weird. Where did that come from? I haven't heard that name in a while. But I'm not sure which one I prefer. But I think probably given the choice, I'd probably take the SportsBank one just because it does have at least, as I've said earlier, fans. So then at least they'll be on the same wavelength with Parish of trying to sort of maintain the club at a certain standard. And he will have the same ideas of how to push it forward.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not entirely sure also because there's a lot we don't really know about the consortium's bid. One thing is, it's a good point you raise about the Newcastle and the quagmire of Saudi ownership. I wonder if that'd be less bad in this case. I don't know a lot about the Syed brothers who are leading the bid. But obviously it's a mixed US Saudi one, and it might be that they're more detached from. It's more a case of them being private Saudi citizens than as perhaps appeared to be the case with the Newcastle one, and that might make it slightly less complicated. But again, I think that's sort of something we don't really know yet. We don't know a lot about them. I suspect with the consortium, some of the problems of that we've seen with Textor at Palace could reoccur if they came in. I don't think they're just wanting to buy a load of shares and take a back seat and just let Steve Parish run the club. There's consortium set up or a fund set up with express purpose of buying a football club. They have people on board with lots of hands-on sports business experience. Maybe Jason Kidd wants to implement some of his NBA ideas. We'll see some real end-to-end stuff at Sourhurst. But yeah, whether they're just going to be happy to put their money in and let things continue as normal, as I think it would kind of be the dream for Palace. I'd have my doubts. One advantage I see of it is the fact that they're an unknown quantity. An unknown quantity is maybe better than Textor having full control, and with the, if that's what SportsBank leads to, because we've seen what's happened to Leon. I don't know if that's entirely John Textor's fault, but to whatever extent it is, it's quite alarming because he might be getting one of the biggest teams in France relegated for financial mismanagement. And the second point I think with SportsBank is like, it is good like Palace fans and stuff, and you think that will hopefully lead to more careful management of the club, as has been the case with Steve Parish and Simon Jordan before him. It's, I think there'll be another phase of drama and instability if they do make that investment, because there's no guarantee that with that extra money, Harris or Blitzer sell the shares to Texas. They would need to take control, so there's going to be more struggles behind the scenes and stuff like that. And you kind of think it's possible the consortium could avert that, but it might be a new flavour of struggle. So I don't know. You can see the advantages either way. I think probably either's better than the current kind of Textor controlling 45% of the club but not really being invested in it. Either thing is probably better in a lot of ways. One potential advantage of SportsBank, I think, could be that there's a chance it can get done and free up some fees a bit quicker, because, and I might be wrong about this, I think because they're investing in Eagle Football Group, they don't need to pass all of the sort of same tests in terms of being fit and proper persons and stuff that the Premier League impose. Arguably, it's a good thing if people do have to undergo those tests. But if there's a chance that could even lead to a late cash injection in January, is that enough to swing it in terms of, SportsBank's a better offer? Do Palace need January reinforcements enough for a bit of extra money to swing it in their favour?
I think it'd probably be a bit of an advantage. You won't get the whole transfer embargo at probably one of the most crucial points of the season, which will be a great benefit. And well, we kind of do need some kind of reinforcements. I think we've talked about this on a few occasions where it only takes a couple of nasty injuries that we then start having problems. Much like the Chelsea game, we were down to sort of we had to swap out Chalobah basically because Chelsea had a agreement with the loan deal that he can't play against his parent club. So then, if we had even more injuries, it could have been even more of a problem. So we do need reinforcements. We've got very, very small sort of first team choices, and in very particular positions we're fairly struggling, as we've also brought up, as sort of the fullback position and stuff. So any cash injection would probably be welcome, but it's very, very much of where it's coming from. I think people are going to have sort of like ethical issues, especially if it's the Saudi one, just because very much after the debacle of Newcastle and several other ones over many, many years, where sort of Saudi investment has come in and then they've either sort of turned the team around or they've gotten bored and walked away. And some investors have got loads of money and things like that, but just still don't know how to run a football club. So we'll have to see, but I think any cash injection in a short amount of time is always appreciated, especially in the Prem now when like fees are going up, and even just getting out of, say, the middle of the pack is going to cost a small fortune now. So that's kind of my real view on it. If it comes about, I probably would prefer the SportsBank one. Then we don't have the transfer embargo, and it could just give us a nice little sort of war chest to go into, as there's 3 weeks of January left with no real deals on the table. Nothing big has happened in a week, which I'm very surprised by. It's only, if you look at the BBC, it's all very, very small lower league deals and loan deals. There's no big, massive transfer yet, but we'll see. It's still early in the transfer window, and we'll have to see how that goes.
Yeah, well, I think it's, as you say, it's kind of Palace. I don't think they need to spend bucket loads in January, but definitely a few reinforcements, just strengthening the depth in a few areas could be pretty vital for solidifying them, making sure they don't get sucked back into relegation battles. So anything that facilitates some January spending might be quite important. I think that's a good place to have a little pause, have a word from our sponsor, and then get into some transfer speculation. Here at Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencaster came out the clear winner. 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs. It's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencaster. So as I say, we've got some more transfer news now. We're basically just going to discuss a couple of players that Palace have been linked with. So firstly, Palace are reportedly interested in signing the most exciting English talent for a generation's brother, with the club apparently sniffing around Jobe Bellingham. What do you think of this one, Dan? Is that a signing you'd like to make?
This could be an interesting signing, because I seem to remember this being one back in the summer. Like, it was very, very low interest kind of offer. Like, oh, I didn't know he had a brother. Apparently, there's another one on the way somewhere in the Birmingham Youth Academy, I think. So we could be looking at a whole string of them. No, we don't need another one. He's fine. But watching a couple of highlights of him, surprisingly enough, he plays a lot like his brother. Very much that I will do this stuff myself. Like, give me the ball,
Yeah.
I'll do the spectacular. I'm going to get stuck in and basically drive the game myself. So, which could work for Palace. We need one of those players that can actually take the ball and actually run with it, and maybe a bit of sort of flair and spectacular every now and again. But the only problem I have with it is the fact of, are we buying him because he's the right fit, or because he's Jude Bellingham's brother? Because that's going to follow him until he makes a name for himself. We also have the slight issue of, I think, Arsenal and United are also having a little look at him as well, probably on the same vein of, we missed out on his brother. Let's try and get him before his transfer value skyrockets, or he goes off to Germany or something to learn his trade. So, I would still take him. We need sort of playmaking midfielders, and he does fit the bill fairly well.
Yeah, I think it's not a bad idea, Jobe Bellingham. So he's at Sunderland, playing in the Championship. We trust Palace to identify talent in the Championship. He's valued by Sunderland apparently at 20 million, which is a lot of money, but for a 19-year-old who's already playing week in, week out and doing a good job in the Championship, it's not that much money. He can play kind of anywhere, I think, from defensive to attacking midfield. It seems to be, whether this translates to the Premier League or not is always a question, but seems capable of chipping in the goal. Got 7 last season, so he scored 4 this year. Sort of tackling and passing, solid. He can drive the play up. I don't really know quite if, as a long-term plan, him and Wharton works as a midfield too. I feel like they're both maybe a little bit inexperienced and attack-minded. But yeah, I think he's clearly a really talented, versatile player. And I could sort of see it happening if the Bellinghams kind of operate and think the same, and you think their parents seem to have been quite involved in their careers and helping in guiding decisions, I can actually see Palace being more appealing to them than Arsenal, say United, Spurs, I think have been linked, because he'll play some football, get involved, and Jude maybe, all right, I can see the club's a lot bigger than Crystal Palace, but he could have gone to bigger clubs and earned more money than he did when he went to Dortmund. United were interested in all that. And you think they decided they'll go to a club where there's a pathway into the team and a history of developing players of that kind of profile. All that's true of Palace. He's big enough and robust enough, like 6'3", and doesn't shirk a tackle, that I think another player like that would be useful in the midfield, because I don't know how long Wharton's out. Hughes is suspended every 5 games. And then if Correi or Lerma gets injured, there are games where you trust Kamada or Devaney to play that centre midfield role. But there are games where you probably don't want them in there just because they're not quite kind of tough enough, really. If you're trying to bed in, it's going to be a bit scrappy. You'd rather someone more of a proper, powerful central midfielder. And I think Jobe's got that in his locker. So I quite like it. I quite like it as an idea. Whether it'll happen, I don't know, but I approve of it. Elsewhere, the Eagles have also had a bid rejected, reportedly, for another player with a more famous footballing namesake. This time it's Hadji Malick Diouf. It's not the bleached Mohican sociopath who somehow managed to make the old firm more toxic. It's a nice 20-year-old Senegalese left wing back who plays for Slavia Prague. What do you think of this one, Dan? Is that a signing you'd like to see Palace make?
I think we could do definitely a deal for a left wing back, as we brought up, and I brought up a little while ago. It's a position we actually need some coverage in. But also, yet again, like watching some highlights when you sort of brought it up in the sort of discussions earlier, was he reminds me of Yannick Bolasie. Just that crazy, his legs are going everywhere, his arms are going everywhere, but he's just big, physical. He doesn't shy away from a tackle. He's going to go for it. He's got some nice sort of tricks up his sleeve. He goes for the spectacular, which is always fun. He looks like he has a full package as a kind of left wing back, a little bit more sort of maybe ingenuity than Tyreek Mitchell, because he kind of just goes straight up, straight down. Diouf seems to sort of, he'll move around a little bit. He's going to take people on as well. So this is always, he looks like a good signing, and he does look a lot like one of the players that Palace kind of get, one of these kind of freaks of nature that will just set the league on fire. Everybody's going to go, who is this guy? Where did we find him from? Oh wait, he's in the Czech league. You should guys go and have a look down there.
I quite like it. I think again, it's, as you say, it's a big priority area. So the bid was 12.5.
Right. I saw about 15, something like that. 12 to 15, something like that.
I think the reported bid was 12.5. Some suggestions that Palace might raise their offer to about 15. Slavia Prague apparently want 20. Palace are unlikely to meet that. But I think he, again, seems a sensible enough signing. He's young enough that he doesn't mind being in a development position, and being sort of Mitchell's understudy to a certain extent would give him that rest. Has been brilliant in the Czech league. He's scored sort of 6 goals from left wing back already this season. He's clearly ready for a step up from there, and has also played well against some really good opposition in the Europa League. I think he was looking at something like 1.5 expected assists and 1 expected goals from his 6 games there, against the likes of who was in the list they played against. Like, it definitely included Fenerbahce, Ajax. Was Benfica in there? No, it wasn't. Either way, it was a solid list of teams he played against, and he'd acquitted himself well. So I think it's a move that definitely could make sense, and I'd support. Equally, there are other good options for Palace to consider at left wing back. There's Bester at Benfica, who was brilliant in the Bundesliga last season, has kind of struggled to break into the team there. And there's also Alfie Doughty, who we saw how good he was at Luton last year, that Palace are reportedly sniffing around. I think all 3 options there are good and offer not just cover for Mitchell, but offer something different to him in the games, because Mitchell's defensively brilliant and sort of getting better and better going forward, but he's not going to pull some bit of creative genius out of nowhere. These guys do have that greater flair, that better crossing ability, all that kind of stuff. So I think all 3 are deals, again, that we'd back, and I like a lot. Almost any left wing back I would support a signing of, as you say at the start there. But yeah, no, I like it. We'll see how these ones develop. For now, that's probably the end of our serious discussion portion of the episode. So we're going to have a little word from the network and then get into a very short quiz. This podcast is part of the Global Sports Podcast Network, the only network bringing you exclusive daily news and views on your Premier League team, the Premier League, women's football and fantasy football. A unique listening experience that puts fans first, bringing you the very latest breaking news from your team. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and make us your first listen every day. Global Sports Podcast Network, every club, every day. All right, sing along with me, Dan. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Kate Correi and Tilly. Happy birthday
to you.
Yeah, that's right. It's both Cheikh Doucouré and Attilio Lombardo's birthdays this week. To honour this pair of midfield dome heads, I've come up with 2 questions. Both questions are
Only 2?
multiple choice. If you get both right, Dan, Cheick Correi's promised to go a full season without rupturing any major ligaments. So there's a lot on the line. Are you ready?
Let's go for it. Why not?
Okay,
I don't have much of a choice.
After winning Player of the Season for Palace in 2022-23, Correi suggested he'd always been destined to play for the club. But why? Is it A, that he grew up in a town called Selhurst? B, Mali, for who he plays international football, are also nicknamed the Eagles? Or C, as a child, he had a Crystal Palace shirt which his auntie had brought back from a trip to London, mistakenly believing it to be a Barcelona one?
Ooh, those are actually some really good ones, and they're all kind of believable. But I would probably think it's C. He got the jersey and a slight mistaken identity, because you can do that very easily through Palace shirts throughout the years. They look very, very similar, especially when you're not knowing what you're looking at.
I'm afraid that's actually B. It's just that
Marley
also nicknamed the Eagles, which is a shame. It's a shame. I'd like to think of a young Cheick Correi running around with a Crystal Palace shirt with Ronaldinho printed on the back.
Exactly. That's just boring. Come on. Oh, what my national team is called the Eagles as well. Oh.
Yeah,
Come on, man. You can do better than that.
Jake. Okay, on to the next question about the next man. Lombardo naturally earned the nickname the Bald Eagle during his time at Palace, due to his head looking from the back like someone had pulled a snood over the bottom half of a bowling ball. But after which bold cartoon character was he nicknamed during his time in Italy? Well, naturally, there's no reason to call him the Bald Eagle. Was it A, Elmer Fudd, B, Charlie Brown, C, Popeye, or L'ultimo dominatore dell'aria, which is the last airbender in Italian?
I would very much doubt it's a last airbender, because he was playing in like the late 90s. So I very much doubt it's that, but there is.
The first airbender.
I think it's probably Elmer Fudd, because he does kind of have that look about him. And if I remember what he played like, he played very seriously. There was no real joking about it. And he played football, he went for it. And it was very all or nothing kind of. And I think he did the same kind of attitude with his sort of Italian coach as well. They really kind of hated him. He was a bit of a drill master.
I mean, you can tell he's a hard worker, by like there's never going to be any kind of flair or enjoyment to him with that haircut. So it's I'm a serious man. But yeah, is it Elmer Fudd you're going with?
I'm going to go with Elmer Fudd, because I very much doubt it's the last airbender.
I'm afraid, mate, it's actually Popeye.
Popeye?
I'm not sure.
Really?
I don't really buy that. I don't think he's bold enough or ripped enough to be Popeye. But Popeye it is.
Fair enough.
With that, I think we'll wrap this pod up to go and watch some episodes of bold cartoon characters. Who would you choose, Dan, of those 4? Elmer Fudd, Charlie Brown, Popeye, and L'ultimo dominatore dell'aria.
I'm not sure, actually. I'm really not sure. Can we go a 5th option and go and watch The Simpsons? They've got a bald character in there.
It definitely wasn't a Homer Simpson, but yeah, I'll allow it. I like Popeye, fellow spinach enjoyer. It's not quite ever had the same effect for me, but I appreciate his culinary choices and his lack of penchant for small talk. So I'll be watching that one. If you've got this far and enjoyed the episode, we always say, please leave us a 5-star review. It helps being discovered. Thank you, Dan, for joining me today.
A pleasure as always, mate.
And we hope you will tune in again tomorrow.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.